Hello! Today I feel like talking about the film Passengers, so that's what I'm going to do. And this video is going to contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, this is your warning. It's going to contain spoilers. Yeah, so let's start with the premise. I noticed that a lot of people don't like the premise of the film. You know, the idea that Jim woke up Aurora, they find uneasy and bad, and like it makes him a bad character. And my response to that is, first of all, so what? You don't have to agree with the things that people do in films all of the time for them to be good films. You don't have to agree with everything that characters do in books or whatever for them to be good books. I'm not going to go around banning all the books or films that don't agree with my worldview for them to be acceptable. I can still say Passengers is a great film even if you don't agree with what he does. Nextly, I noticed someone said on IMDb that it's a little bit like the premise of Beauty and the Beast, and people still let their children watch that. Like, people have watched that for years and years and years and years and been okay with that existing. So why can't Passengers exist? You know, why have you suddenly got a problem with the premise when it's Passengers, which is a film not for children? Exactly, you know? Yeah, so yeah, it exists. Get over it. To me, the film Passengers is, I guess, about depression. Jim is in a scenario where he has been alone for a year and he sees no way out of this. Apart from he could kill himself or he could bother other people. You know, he could go wake up someone else. And he has that moment where he thinks about killing himself. He very almost does. And I think a lot of suicidal people would be able to relate to that moment where you're like, I should just do everyone a favour and kill myself. You know, I shouldn't wake up anyone else or bother anyone else. I shouldn't be a burden on anyone else. I should just off myself. And actually, I recently saw a documentary about euthanasia, and there was a person on it who had mental health problems for a significant amount of time, and so she was putting in an application to be able to kill herself. And there was this sort of debate about whether or not she should be allowed to. And it's a hard question. It's like, if someone is a gross burden on others and the only way of them existing is with others' help, is there any circumstances in which a person, a perfectly fit person, physically, should die because they're a burden on others, or because of mental health issues, or because the way for them to live is to bother someone else and tell them that they're in this predicament where they are feeling suicidal? At the end of the day, Passengers is a film. It's set in space. It's not a real scenario which is actually really happening. But you could compare it to scenarios that people are in every day throughout the world, which is that some people in the world are suicidal and do think about whether or not they should bother anyone else or wake up anyone else or tell anyone else, or whether they should just do everyone a favour and go, or just not tell anyone and go. And what do you say to that? Do you say that they should bother people? That they should tell people their predicament and so forth? And even if it's a burden on someone else, that they should do those things? In which case, are you saying that Jim should wake someone up because his predicament is that he is alone? He's alone, and he has been for months, 100% alone for more than a year. He doesn't just wake her up, you know, day 2. He dwells on this question for months and months, you know, should he wake someone up, should he not, should he just kill himself, what should he do? It's not like he just took it lightly. Another thing that comes up in this film is that he's not just alone, he is completely without power. He doesn't have any control or anything, you know, he can't even make a cup of coffee.
Sorry, the mocha cappuccino extreme is reserved for gold class. Sorry, the French roast. Sorry, the pumpkin spice. Sorry, the vanilla chai latte. Sorry.
He manages to break into a better room and, you know, get into the entertainment room, but he can't have much space or much good food because the machine makes the food, and he has the wristband of just like basically economy class. Later in the film they do acquire a better wristband from another crew member who also happens to wake up and subsequently dies. This crew member being awake, this still doesn't fix their scenario of being unable to put themselves back to sleep. This third crew member, he's a crew member, but he also has no idea what to do in the scenario of a pod malfunctioning. Then Jim hypothesizes that they could use that wristband to get the Medipod to put one of them back to sleep. And I see a lot of people on IMDb or whatever saying, what, is there only one Medipod? Why can't they both go back to sleep in two different Medipods? But to that I say they've only got one of these wristbands from that crew member, so they can only swipe it once. Whenever they used the Medipod, it required someone to be there, swiping it, pressing the buttons, swiping it again, to get authorization to use the Medipod at all. They didn't have the authority to use the Medipod. It was only with this third wristband that they had any authority to use the Medipod. So even if there was 1,000 Medipods on the ship, they wouldn't have been able to put them both back to sleep because one of them would have to stay outside the Medipod to swipe it. So they are still in that scenario where, you know, at the end of the film she could go back to sleep, but he would have to stay awake, or vice versa. One idea I did see on IMDb though is the idea that maybe one of them could go to sleep for half the time and the other for half the time, or maybe just until they get a message back from Earth, because the message was going to take 55 years. And that seemed a bit of a compelling idea that they could research. You know, whether or not one of them could go to sleep for 25 years and the other one could go to sleep for 25 years. A plot that could be explored. But I don't find the lack of Medipods a plot hole, because I feel like that was explained. I was a bit concerned at the start of the film actually that he was going to run out of money, because every time he swiped his band it was costing money to do things. Like when he swiped his wristband to be able to send a message to Earth saying my pod's malfunctioned, what should I do? It said it cost him $6,000 and odd. And I thought, he's going to run out of money. This is going to be really bad. He's just going to starve to death. He's just going to eat the amount of food that his band will allow him, and then he's just going to starve. But I guess that isn't a plot hole either, because he did manage to break into the room with all the plants and stuff and just let them grow in the end. So we can imagine for much of the time on the spaceship they weren't being fed machine food anymore. It was just food they had to grow because their bands will run out. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the film. I thought it was a great film. There's not much in the way of plot holes, and it was highly relatable to me. Unnervingly so, you know. And I totally think I'm gonna watch this film again. Yeah.
Please enjoy.
Oh, really?